Okay, so our purpose here will be to talk about how to write effective learning objectives for your course and your course content. So what are student learning objectives? Well, a definition is that student learning objectives are statements that specify what learners will know or be able to do as a result of a learning activity. The key word here is do. There's an application element to learning objectives. Knowing is one thing, but being able to show that you know something is much more useful, particularly in an online course. So what are the characteristics of good student learning objectives? Well, there are three. First off, the specified action taken by the learners must be observable, meaning that it's something that a student can show you or something they can do. Second, the specified action taken by the learners must be measurable. Measurable implies that you can assess it. Finally, the specified action must be completed by the learners and not the instructor. In other words, the instructor is not feeding or leading the students. Students are simply able to do the thing that they're asked to do. So how do you write learning objectives? Well, that's the $64,000 question. In order to start writing learning objectives, you need to determine what the final outcome or product or competency will be. Then start with an action verb from Bloom's, and then write your learning objective. Couple things to be aware of. Use action verbs to outline the activity, skill, or competency. Ideally, those verbs will be based on Bloom's. And also, think about progressing from lower order thinking, such as memorizing, to higher order thinking, such as analysis or application. So how do I know if my learning objectives are any good? The most important thing to consider is whether the actions taken by the participant are something that can be measured in an objective assessment. If not, it needs to be rewritten. And by measurable, we mean testable in an objective environment. Saying that you know and students understand is fine, but in an online environment, there's not always the space to continually ask students questions to draw them out and find out if they truly understand. So the objectives need to be measurable so as to align with the assessment. So if the action taken or completed by the participant is measurable or not, then if the objective describes a task that cannot be measured and assessed, then the objective needs to be rewritten. So let's consider some examples of non-measurable and measurable objectives, or at least non-measurable and then a rewritten version that's measurable. So the first one, students will understand three main reasons for participating in volunteerism. The reason that this objective is not measurable is that it's difficult to gauge with any real accuracy whether someone truly understands something. And again, in an online environment, there's not always the space to continually ask students to draw them out to find out if they truly understand. So instead, we'll try, students will list three reasons for participating in volunteer opportunities. The rewritten example is far more clear because it requires students to apply what they know. In other words, they have to show what they know. In this case, listing. So a few more examples. Unclear, appreciate the foreshadowing in short stories. Clear, analyze the selected short stories for specific elements of foreshadowing. Unclear, realize and understand the effects of World War I on literature. Clear, discuss the impact of the First World War on selected works of literature of the 1920s. In both of the unclear examples, the results or the objectives, appreciate and realize, are not clearly measurable, and therefore they're not effective. The clear examples, on the other hand, represent objectives that can be measured via an assessment in which students have an opportunity to demonstrate what they know, analyzing and discussing. So if you're trying to write measurable learning objectives, you'll want to avoid certain verbs that are vague and not clearly measurable. So here on this screen you can see a list of the most egregious offenders in the area of vague learning objectives, and you really want to avoid these at all costs. Here we have a few helpful links on the subject where you can do a little bit more reading, eLearning Coach and Education Oasis. And here are the references that I used for the presentation. Thanks. Have a great day.